A woman named Helen arrives at her old family house with her kids, Jared, Simon, and Mallory. The kids look shocked to see how old the place looks, but Helen mentions that it used to look better. Simon doesn't seem to care, and he asks Helen if he'll now be allowed to have bigger pets since they have a bigger house.
Yeah, so I can get bigger pets here, right, Mom?
Helen says he can have any pets he wants, but as she asks Jared what he thinks, he just ignores her and continues playing with his phone. Shortly after, Simon and Mallory start taking their things into the house, but Jared stays inside the car. Helen then comes over to ask why he's giving her the silent treatment, even though there are other ways for him to deal with his anger.
Just what are you expecting your silent protest will get you?
She adds that she knows he's pissed about the relocation, but she's sure he'll eventually enjoy the place. Jared still doesn't say anything, and as Helen looks tired, she tells Simon and Mallory to come inside the house when they're done. As Helen leaves, Mallory tells Jared that he needs to get out of the car already. She also uses one of her fencing swords to tap him, and this gets him pissed, so he gets out of the car to attack her. As he unsuccessfully tries to hit Mallory,
I'll do whatever I want.
she tells him that he needs to stop acting out because their mom needs the relocation to work. Jared says he'll do whatever he wants, and that Mallory is so annoying because she behaves like she knows everything. Mallory says she knows things Jared doesn't know, but as he asks what she's talking about, she doesn't say anything. Jared then tells Simon to help him attack Mallory,
Simon, get her!
but he says he doesn't like conflict. Jared doesn't like this, and as his siblings leave him outside, he suddenly hears something strange moving around the bushes. Jared looks scared and wonders what it is, but as he keeps hearing the sound, he just goes inside the house. He then sees Simon unpacking his things and asks why he's doing that. Simon doesn't seem to understand his question,
Unpacking?
but Jared says it's of no use because their dad, Richard, is coming to take them back to the city. Simon asks if he'll also take Mallory, but Jared says she deserves to be with their mom. As he complains about how old the house looks, Jared sees some salt just by the window, and Simon says it's actually everywhere. He adds that their aunt, Lucinda, might be responsible for putting the salt around the house. Jared asks if it's their crazy aunt, and Simon says she's the one. As they then see a family portrait of a man and his family, Jared asks if the man's wife is Lucinda.
Is that the nutbag and her husband?
Simon says she's Lucinda's mom, and that Lucinda is the little girl standing in front of her dad, Arthur Spiderwick, who also happens to be their great-uncle. As Simon continues to talk about Lucinda, he mentions that she was sent to a nursing home because she claimed her dad was kidnapped by fairies. Jared finds this funny and says he doesn't want to end up like Lucinda, who spent most of her life living inside the house and refusing to go out. He says he'll also not let it happen to Simon, and it's why he wants their dad to take them back to the city.
End of discussion.
Shortly after, while the family is having dinner, Helen asks if her kids have seen her car keys because she suddenly can't find them. Simon says he hasn't seen it, but Jared ignores her. As Helen continues working in the kitchen, she sees so many bottles of honey and says that Lucinda must have liked it so much. Simon says she must have liked tomato sauce too, because the store is filled with them. Helen cannot believe this, but as she checks the store, she wonders why Lucinda had many jars of tomato sauce. Just then, Mallory gets to the dining room and asks Jared if he took her fencing medal.
Where's my fencing medal, Jared?
Jared says he didn't take it, but Mallory doesn't believe him. As they argue about who likely took it, Helen eventually tells them to stop. She then mentions that they need to learn to live as a family. She says she understands how they must be feeling about relocating to a new house, but that they have to make things work.
Jared?
Give it back.
Almost immediately, Richard calls Helen, and Mallory leaves the table along with Simon. Helen then eventually gives Jared the phone to speak to his dad. As they start talking, Jared sounds really excited because he's still expecting Richard to come to the house the next day. Unfortunately, Richard says he won't be able to come anymore because he has something else to do.
Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna try.
He adds that he'll still call Jared later because there's something they have to talk about. Jared looks disappointed, but he says he understands. After the call ends, he then blames his mom for telling Richard something that made him change his mind about coming. Even though she didn't do this, Helen just walks away and refuses to say anything. Before Jared can leave for his room, something suddenly sounds behind the wall. As he knocks on it a few times, the creature knocks back, and Jared is shocked. He then pokes a stick through different parts of the wall to see if he can hit the creature. Unfortunately, this leaves a dent in the wall, and as Helen sees this, she tells Jared to stop. He angrily drops the stick, and as Helen looks worried, Mallory tells their mom to go to bed while they try to clean up Jared's mess. After she leaves, Jared says there's something moving in the wall, but Mallory and Simon don't believe him. Suddenly, they hear something moving, but as Jared picks up the stick again, Mallory tells him to hand it over to her so she can gently tap the wall.
We don't need any more holes in the wall.
As she then follows the sound, Mallory taps a part of the wall, and it breaks off to reveal a dumbwaiter. The kids look shocked, but as Mallory looks inside it, she sees Helen's car keys and her medal. She immediately turns to blame Jared, but he asks how he could have possibly put the items inside the dumbwaiter and replastered the wall. Mallory doesn't think he's innocent, and she tells him to clean up the mess. He then asks if Mallory and Simon won't help him, but they leave him to do it alone.
Don't you want to know where this thing goes?
Shortly after, Jared cleans the dumbwaiter and finds a key inside. He then enters the dumbwaiter and uses it to get to an abandoned office. As he looks around, he sees a big treasure chest and uses the key to open it. The things inside the box are already old and dusty, but Jared still scatters it and finds a book wrapped in a piece of cloth. Before he checks what's inside the book, he hears something moving in the office, and as he looks around, he sees a warning on the floor for him to leave. Jared looks shocked, but as he wonders who wrote the warning, something flips his torchlight, and he immediately leaves with the dumbwaiter. He then heads to the room and wakes Simon up to tell him what happened. Simon thinks it's impossible for a creature to write a warning on the floor, and he just continues his sleep. Jared looks disappointed, but he then climbs his bed to check out the book he found. As he's about to open it, he sees a warning note advising him against doing so because it will come with deadly consequences. Jared doesn't seem to care, and as he removes the seal on the book, it appears to release a strange energy wave away from the house. Jared doesn't understand what just happened, but he then starts hearing strange sounds in the wall again. As he looks around, he sees two of Simon's pets under his blanket and wonders how they left their cage. Even though this leaves him confused, Jared returns them to their cage and enters a footlocker to hide and read the book.
How'd you guys get out?
As he opens the book, he sees that it's Arthur's field guide about several creatures that live among humans but are hidden by magic. Jared looks intrigued, and as he continues reading a note inside the book, he learns that magical creatures are real and that the guide actually contains important information about all of them. While Arthur mentions that most of the creatures are a sight to behold, he adds that there are dark creatures who are controlled by an ogre named Mulgarath. In his final notes, Arthur says that Mulgarath must never lay his hands on the book because he'll use the information inside to destroy all the magical creatures. He also warns anyone who finds the book to do whatever they can to protect the book and the entire magical community from Mulgarath. As Jared admires all the creatures inside the book, he hears Mallory shouting for help, so he leaves the footlocker and heads out of the room with Simon. When they get to her room, they see that Mallory's hair has been tied to her bed frame, and she believes Jared did it while she was sleeping. Jared denies this and says he was inside the footlocker, but Mallory still thinks he did it, and Helen scolds him. Jared doesn't like this, and he walks out of the room angrily. The next day, while Mallory and Simon are playing outside, Jared comes over to ask his twin brother what the word appease means. After he's told the meaning, Mallory asks if he wants to apologize. Jared says he didn't do anything to her hair. He then mentions that there's a creature inside the house that needs to be appeased because Mallory destroyed its nest the previous day when they found the dumbwaiter. He adds that the creature likes honey and that it's why Lucinda likely stored them in the house. His siblings don't believe him, but he tells them that he knows so much about the magical creatures because of Arthur's guide. Mallory and Simon still don't trust him.
Don't listen to him, Simon.
And as they head inside, an invisible creature appears to be watching Jared. He notices this, but as the creature gets close to him, it fails to get through what looks like an invisible wall, and Jared quickly runs inside. He then builds a new house for the creature that needs to be appeased. He also puts a bottle of honey and some biscuits inside it. As he then takes it to Arthur's office, he tells the creature to come out, but no one answers Jared.
Hello?
He then drops the nest on a table, after which he says he'll be waiting to see if the creature shows up. After a while, Jared falls asleep, but when he wakes up, he sees that the creature has already eaten the biscuit and left crumbs on the floor. As he follows the crumbs, he finally sees a creature named Thimbletack, who looks shocked to see Jared. Jared is also surprised, but as Thimbletack runs away and turns invisible, he follows him and asks why he can't see the creature. Thimbletack then appears again and says that Jared can only see him if he wants to be seen. As Jared asks about the book, Thimbletack looks furious because the seal is no longer on it. He also says he has failed his master for not protecting the book like he wanted. Jared looks confused, and as he asks Thimbletack who told him to protect the book, he says it was Arthur. He then asks why Jared read the book after seeing a warning note on it. Jared doesn't have much to say, and Thimbletack mentions that Arthur wants the field guide to always stay inside the circle around the house.
Whoa, stop! What circle?
As Jared asks about the circle, Thimbletack shows him a protective circle around the house that will prevent dangerous creatures from getting in. Suddenly, they notice something strange approaching Simon after he leaves the protective circle, as he then gets pushed to the ground and dragged away. Jared looks worried and asks what's happening. Thimbletack says it's the goblins, and he gives Jared a seeing stone to see what he's talking about. As Jared uses the stone, he sees the goblins taking Simon away, so he says that he needs to help his brother. Thimbletack tries to stop him from taking the book away, but Jared refuses to let go of it. He then goes downstairs to find Helen, but as he sees Mallory, he just leaves the house without telling her anything. After a while, he hides near a tree and sees the goblins talking while Simon is in a cage. As he wonders what to do next, a creature named Hogsqueal appears to be behind him inside a cage. After eating a bird, Hogsqueal tells Jared to free him so they can fight together because he has a plan to kill Mulgarath for murdering his family.
Can you help me save my brother? Please?
Jared frees Hogsqueal, but he eventually turns out to be a coward who doesn't want to attack the goblins. Despite this, Hogsqueal spits into Jared's eyes so that he won't need the seeing stone anymore. Before Jared then walks over to save Simon, he hears the goblin calling Mulgarath's name, and Hogsqueal says they're summoning the monster. After he appears as a strange man, Mulgarath approaches Simon and asks for Arthur's field guide. Simon says he doesn't have it, but that he can look for it and bring it back to the woods. Mulgarath likes this, but he warns Simon that if he doesn't bring him the book, he'll get killed. Simon looks scared, but he agrees to the deal and gets released. After he leaves, though, Mulgarath scolds the goblins for capturing the wrong boy. He then mentions that they now need to collect the book from Simon and kill him and his family.
Go on.
Jared hears this and immediately leaves the woods to find Simon. After they meet, Simon blames Jared for what happened to him, and he says they must give the book to Mulgarath. Jared says it's not the right thing to do, and he mentions that he even has the book with him. Simon immediately tries to drag it from him, but the goblins see the book and head toward them. The brothers quickly run away, but as they nearly enter the protective circle, the goblins grab Simon and scratch his leg. Jared risks getting caught and saves his brother, after which he says they'll be fine inside the circle. Suddenly, Mallory comes out of the workshop and asks why Jared has been shouting. Jared immediately warns her to run toward the house, but she doesn't understand why he wants her to do that. Before she knows what's happening, the goblins attack her, but Jared quickly gives her the seeing stone so that she can fight for herself. After a while, she gets past the goblins and enters the circle. She also looks confused as to what's going on, but Jared just enters the house. After they help Simon clean his wound, Mallory asks what's going on, and Jared explains that the goblins want the book. Mallory asks where he found the book in the first place, and as he tells her, she scolds him for always doing things without thinking. Jared doesn't care, but as they argue about what to do with the book, Thimbletack shows up and says he won't let them give the book to Mulgarath because he'll kill everyone. Simon suggests burning it.
Let's just burn it.
so Jared takes it outside to do that. Unfortunately, the book doesn't burn, and the goblins tell the kids that they'll still find a way to cross the circle and get the book. After the kids head back inside, Mallory sounds worried, but Jared says the goblins can't enter the house because the only way to destroy the circle is to use the instructions inside the book. Mallory then says she doesn't want to end up like Lucinda, who spent most of her life sitting indoors. Jared realizes that Lucinda might know what to do, so he suggests going to see her. As they wonder which nursing home she was taken to, Simon finds a document about the place.
She's at the Woodhaven Sanatorium.
Thimbletack then says they can go to the city by taking a secret tunnel. He also suggests leaving the book inside the house, and Jared drops it and leaves with Mallory to find Lucinda. However, as Thimbletack is about to check the book, he realizes that Jared tricked him and took the field guide. Meanwhile, the goblins notice that Jared and Mallory are inside the secret tunnel, so they send a beast to attack them. Luckily, Jared and Mallory make it out alive, and the monster gets crushed by a car in the city. As they head to the nursing home, Helen sees them from her new workplace, but she can't leave because she's busy. Elsewhere, Simon finds a page inside Arthur's office that helps him understand that the goblins can be killed with pepper sauce. Following this, he brings out the pepper sauce jars and starts preparing for an attack on the goblins. Meanwhile, Jared and Mallory reach the nursing home and see a salt circle in Lucinda's room.
Lucinda, you have visitors.
When they eventually see her, she pretends to be mute, but as they mention that they just moved into her house, she asks why they did that because it's dangerous. She also says they won't understand, but Jared says they do. She then shows them the fairies she was talking to before they arrived. Jared also shows her the field guide and asks if she can help them take down the goblins and stop Mulgarath. Lucinda is shocked to see the book with them, and she quickly takes them into her room. She then collects the book and says it brought misery to her and her family. She adds that the last time she saw her dad, he looked very agitated, and it was also the day he put the protective circle around the house. On that day, Arthur realizes that Mulgarath was after the book, so he tried everything he could to protect it. Even when Thimbletack suggested burning it, he disagreed and said that the book had to be protected because the information inside is valuable.
No! We need to protect it!
After hiding the book, it turned out that Lucinda didn't know about the protective circle, and while she was playing beside it, the goblins captured her. Luckily, Arthur quickly saved her, but some creatures called the Sylphs suddenly appeared and took him away to protect the knowledge he had of them. Lucinda didn't know this, and she just watched her father being flown away while saying he'll be back one day. Lucinda adds that after she left the circle many years later, the goblins attacked her, but when she told people about it, she was sent to the nursing home.
Here is where they put you.
Mallory feels sad to hear her story, but Lucinda mentions that her dad is still the only one who can help them. Jared looks confused because he believes Arthur is dead, but Lucinda says that the fairies have informed her that her dad is still alive. She then mentions that they must find him and take the book to him. As she's about to hand over the book, the goblins suddenly grab it through the window and steal some pages, but Lucinda quickly throws salt at them. Almost immediately, Helen enters the room with the nursing home staff to ask what's going on.
Mom?
Shortly after, on their way home, Helen doesn't believe what her kids told her, and Jared says it's why Richard left her because she never listens to anyone. Helen doesn't say anything, but as they reach the house, Jared says he hates her and doesn't want to live with her anymore. After he heads inside, Mallory asks Helen why she won't just tell Jared what's happening, but she says she'll do that later.
Go inside, Mel. We'll deal with this when I get home.
Meanwhile, the goblins show Mulgarath the pages they found, but he's still angry because they didn't bring him the book. As he's scolding their leader, he suddenly sees a page about the protective circle. After reading it, he finds a way to destroy it and tells the goblins that when the sun is down, they'll attack the house. As they rejoice, Hogsqueal hears them and says he has to warn Jared. Elsewhere, Mallory notices that the goblins are not around the house, and this surprises her, so she goes to call Jared.
I think you should come and see this.
He also looks surprised, but says that the goblins likely gave up. Just then, Hogsqueal shows up and tells them that Mulgarath has found a way to break into the house. He also spits in Mallory's and Simon's eyes, after which he warns the kids that they need to devise a plan to stop Mulgarath. As Jared goes inside, he calls Richard to ask why he hasn't arrived yet, but the number goes to voicemail. Mallory then sees him looking disappointed and says that their dad isn't coming because he has moved in with someone else and is no longer trying to get back with Helen.
He's with someone else.
Jared feels sad to hear this, but as Mallory asks what they'll do about Mulgarath, he suddenly remembers that Arthur had a pet called a Griffin. He then checks the field guide and sees how to summon the Griffin, so he does just that. After the Griffin arrives, Thimbletack tells the kids to ride the beast and take the book to meet Arthur, because he's the only one who can tell them what to do to stop Mulgarath. Following this,
Cool pet.
the kids climb the Griffin, and it takes them to the Fairy Kingdom, where they see Arthur. Jared quickly asks how he can help them, but Arthur doesn't know who the kids are. Jared then introduces himself as Helen's son and mentions that his aunt, Lucinda, is now in a nursing home. Arthur says it's impossible because he left Lucinda just a while ago, but Jared says he has been gone for 80 years. Arthur is shocked to hear this, and he realizes that the Sylphs likely used their songs to make him lose track of time. Unfortunately, the Sylphs are already making Simon and Mallory listen to them, so Arthur tells Jared to follow him alone. As they find a corner to talk, Jared tells Arthur that he brought the book so it can be destroyed. Arthur cannot believe this, and he asks why Jared would want to do that. As he mentions that they need to protect it, Jared says he needs to start thinking beyond that because the book ruined his family and made his daughter get sent to a nursing home. Arthur looks sad to hear this, but as Jared opens the book, he realizes that Thimbletack gave him a fake book.
Thimbletack. He switched the pages.
Jared says he needs to leave immediately, but Arthur mentions that the Sylphs won't let him return home. Jared looks disappointed because Mulgarath will attack his house in a few hours. He adds that his mom will be home soon and the goblins might attack her, as he laments that the last thing he told her was that he hated her. Arthur decides to create a distraction so that Jared and his siblings can leave. Shortly after, Arthur uses the fake book to distract the Sylphs while Jared summons the Griffin again, so that he and his siblings can leave. When they get home, they see Helen just arriving, so they quickly stop her and enter the car before the goblins attack them. As she asks what's going on, they tell her to drive into the circle, and while doing this, she hits some of the goblins. After they enter the house,
Will someone please tell me what's going on?
Mallory asks Jared what they'll do next, and he says they need to start protecting the house by putting salt around it and getting ready in case they need to fight. Helen doesn't understand what's going on, and as she asks Jared about it, he tells her that the house will soon be under attack. Helen says she's tired of hearing his story about goblins, but she suddenly sees Thimbletack and screams. Jared then tells her that Thimbletack is not the problem. He also gives her the seeing stone so she can see the goblins outside the house. Following this, Helen joins the kids in preparing to protect the house. Shortly after, the sun comes down and the protective circle gets destroyed. The goblins look happy about this and immediately try to enter the house. Unfortunately, all the entrances have been blocked with salt, so the goblins decide to enter the house through the floorboards. Despite Jared and his family's attempts to keep them out, the goblins finally enter the house. Jared and his family quickly run around and find a room to hide. The goblins still find their way in, and Mulgarath also appears inside the house. The family then heads into the kitchen and they put some pepper sauce inside the oven, after which they find different places to hide. As Mulgarath and his goblins enter the kitchen, Jared lights a fire that leads to the oven and causes an explosion that splashes the pepper sauce around the room. All the goblins get killed, and as Jared and the others leave their hiding spot, they start wondering if Mulgarath died too. Suddenly, someone opens the door and they see that it's Richard, who asks what's going on. He also also says he's there to keep his promise to take Jared back to the city. Jared looks happy to see his dad, but when he asks what his dad wanted to tell him, Richard simply says that he wanted to tell his son that he loves him. As he also keeps trying to touch the field guide to see what it is, Jared stabs him. Everyone looks shocked, but Jared says it's not Richard, and that Mulgarath transformed into his dad. Following this, Mulgarath reveals his true self and asks for the book.
Give me the book!
Jared quickly runs away, and his siblings try to defend him, but Mulgarath pushes them away. As Jared enters the dumbwaiter and heads up, Mulgarath changes into a snake and follows him. When they get to the office, Thimbletack tries to fight Mulgarath, but he gets thrown away. Jared then heads out through the window and climbs the roof. Mulgarath still follows him, and as Jared finally has nowhere to run to, he sees Hogsqueal on a nearby tree. He then throws the book toward the tree, and as Mulgarath turns into a bird, Hogsqueal jumps toward him and eats him. As Helen and her other kids leave the house, they see this and look surprised. Jared then falls from the roof, but his family quickly helps him. As he then asks if they got Mulgarath, Hogsqueal shows up and boasts about how he ate the monster and got revenge for killing his family. Just then, Helen tells Jared that she's sorry for not believing him,
Sorry, I didn't believe you.
but he says he should be the one apologizing for always being a troublesome kid. Helen says he doesn't have to apologize, and that she knows how much he loves his dad. She adds that if he wants to live with Richard, she'll allow it because he also loves his son. However, Jared says he wants to stay with her, and she hugs him. The next day, Lucinda is released from the nursing home, and as she enters the house, she sees Thimbletack. She looks happy to see him and says that if her dad were still around, he'd be proud of Thimbletack. Suddenly, the kids call her to come and check something outside. As she gets there, she sees the Sylphs dropping Arthur back at the house. They both look happy to see each other, and Arthur says sorry for leaving her when she was young. He also mentions that the Sylphs only allowed him to return to her because the book is now safe. Lucinda says she's happy he came back just like he promised. However, Arthur says he can't wait because all his years will come back and he'll turn to dust. Lucinda then asks if she can follow him, and he says she can. After he holds her hand, she turns into her young self again.
Daddy.
And the Sylphs take them away with Jared and his family watching them happily. Arthur and Lucinda would have never been reunited if Jared hadn't realized that the magical community needed saving. Even though he was mostly a stubborn boy who always acted alone, he ended up being the true hero in this story. It also turned out that his reason for always acting up earlier was because he thought his mom didn't care much about him, even though his dad was the one who didn't mind moving on from his family. And it is because the people we think don't care about us are the ones who care the most.